Okay, get ready for a deep dive today. We're diving into Spiritism, and specifically, a figure who's got a story you won't believe, Divaldo Franco. I've got his Wikipedia page here, and let me tell you, this is not your average bio.
Not even close.
This guy, he's 97 years old,
Yeah.
a professor, a well-known medium, a celebrated author, a philanthropist. It's like, where does it end?
It's quite the resume, that's for sure. But I think the most captivating thing is how his entire journey is interwoven with Spiritism. This movement, for anyone who's not familiar, centers around communication with spirits. And Divaldo's connection to that world, well, it supposedly started when he was just a kid.
Okay, yes. We have to talk about this childhood experience because it feels like a defining moment for him. So picture this. Divaldo's a young boy, and he goes through a period of paralysis. And then he has this encounter, this meeting with a medium who supposedly helps him to walk again. Can you imagine?
Wow, talk about a life-altering event. You can see how that kind of experience would have a huge impact on someone, how it could shape their beliefs and, honestly, their life's purpose. And for Divaldo, it wasn't just a fleeting inspiration. It sparked a lifelong fascination with understanding and practicing Spiritism.
And that passion is what leads him to become a teacher at such a young age. He ends up in Salvador, Brazil in 1945, starts working at a government institute, but never abandons his interest in Spiritism. And this is where things get really interesting, because this is where we learn that Divaldo claimed to have this ability to actually talk to spirits.
Right, and this ability, it's really at the heart of his work as a psychographer.
Ah.
Now, for anyone who's not familiar with that term, psychography in this context is basically the act of writing down messages that are believed to be coming from spirits. And Divaldo, he said he'd been doing this since he was a child, receiving these messages from the spirit world.
And get this, he was initially told to destroy all of those early writings. Can you imagine receiving these messages, feeling this connection, and then someone tells you to get rid of it all? It's wild. Why the change of heart later on?
It really makes you wonder, right, what changed? Thankfully, for anyone who follows his work, something shifted and he was encouraged to share these communications. And I think the most significant communication, the one that really stands out, is from this spirit named Joanna de Angelis. Divaldo explains that she became his main spiritual guide.
Okay, and Joanna is not messing around. We're not talking just little whispers of inspiration here. This is hundreds of books worth of material. His very first book, Messa de Amor, which translates to Messages of Love, that was supposedly dictated by Joanna. Yeah. And that was just the beginning.
Right, and that book launched this incredible writing career. Over 250 books, millions of copies sold worldwide, translations into 15 languages. That's some serious impact. But it gets even more interesting because Joanna's influence, it reaches beyond just Spiritism. You've got folks in psychology, in parapsychology, who've taken a real interest in her work, especially her writings that focus on self-discovery, on dealing with challenges, on practical ways to apply spiritual principles in your everyday life.
It's almost like a spiritual self-help guide, but with this direct line to the spirit world.
Exactly.
It really makes you think about the power of these messages, right?
Yeah.
Coming through Divaldo from Joanna de Angelis, appealing to people from all different backgrounds.
And it's not just like general life advice, you know, there's this whole series, the psychological series, where Joanna combines spiritist ideas with, get this, concepts from Jungian psychology.
Okay, hold on. Spiritism and Jungian psychology, how does that even work? Those seem like totally separate worlds.
Right, it's like, what's the connection? So Jungian psychology, it was developed by Carl Jung, and it emphasizes this idea of a collective unconscious. It's like this shared well of experiences, these archetypes that we all tap into, and this whole concept of a shared spiritual realm, the idea that we can connect to something bigger than ourselves. Well, that resonates with Spiritism, too.
Oh, okay, I see. So it's almost like these two different fields are both exploring, like the hidden depths of being human.
Yeah.
Of our experiences.
Exactly. And you mentioned earlier, two of the books in this series even touch upon the idea of past lives. And that's interesting, right? Because that concept of past lives, it pops up in both Spiritism and some psychological schools of thought as well.
It's like these unexpected overlaps. It makes you wonder about all the different ways we can understand ourselves, understand our place in the universe that maybe we haven't even fully considered. Divaldo and Joanna's writings, they're kind of nudging us to ask those big questions.
Totally. They're pushing us to think outside the box. But hey, let's shift gears a bit. We've talked about Divaldo the writer, but this man, he wasn't content with just putting pen to paper. We got to talk about his speaking career.
Because, wow, this guy did not slow down.
Not even a little. We're not talking about a few book signings here and there. This was a global speaking tour that kicked off way back in 1947. And it just kept going for decades.
It's incredible. Over 230 days a year, on the road, speaking engagements in over 62 countries across every continent.
Talk about stamina.
Right.
Picture it, speaking to huge crowds, thousands of people, in cities, in villages. He even spoke at the United Nations. What message was he sharing that resonated with such diverse audiences?
Well, they invited him to speak about peace, which seems fitting. I mean, his whole message is about compassion and understanding. It shows how he really lived these principles, you know. He didn't just talk the talk, he walked the walk. And speaking of walking the walk, the Mansión del Camino.
Ah, yes. The Mansion of the Path. It's like this incredible example of his dedication to his lifelong dream of helping children. Did you know, throughout his life, he raised over 600 kids?
Wait, over 600? That's what I thought you said. It's unbelievable.
It's a testament to his character. And the Mansión del Camino, it's like taking that to the next level. It's a huge complex in Salvador, Brazil. It provides services to over 3,000 disadvantaged children every single day.
Guys, we're talking small town at this point. What kind of services?
Everything. Schools, healthcare, support for the elderly, programs to help communities struggling with poverty. It's Divaldo taking his beliefs and putting them into action, making a tangible difference in people's lives.
It's inspiring, really.
Yeah.
A powerful legacy. But we wouldn't be doing a true deep dive if we didn't acknowledge some of the, shall we say, more complicated parts of his life and work. It wasn't all sunshine and roses, right? As dedicated as he was to peace and understanding, there were also some controversies.
Right. It's important to address those, too. For example, Divaldo's stance against gender identity. That sparked a lot of debate, especially in recent years.
It's a topic that definitely brings up strong reactions.
Yeah.
How did the Spiritist community respond to that?
It was a mixed bag. Some members of the Spiritist community condemned his views, seeing them as contradicting the generally accepting nature of Spiritist teachings.
Yeah, I can see how that would be a point of contention.
Others defended his right to express his own opinions, even if they diverged from the mainstream.
Interesting. So it wasn't a clear-cut response.
It's a reminder that even the most influential figures are complex individuals with their own perspectives and interpretations. And it raises some interesting questions as we wrap up this deep dive. With such a massive body of work, where would you even begin with Divaldo and Joanna de Angelis's books?
You know, that's a great question. There are so many. It's hard to know where to start.
Is there really a connection between Spiritism and Jungian psychology as explored in the psychological series?
And how much influence should a spiritual leader's personal views have on their followers, especially given instances of controversy?
Those are all great questions, and I think the answers will vary from person to person. It ultimately comes down to personal exploration and reflection.
So what you're saying is that this deep dive isn't really over. It's just the beginning of our own individual explorations into the world of Divaldo Franco and the ideas he presented.
Precisely. This deep dive has given us a glimpse into a remarkable life, a complex legacy, and some thought-provoking questions that extend beyond the information itself. It's up to each of us to decide how we want to engage with these ideas.
And that's what makes this so fascinating. It's not about handing you a prepackaged conclusion. It's about sparking curiosity and encouraging you to explore further. Maybe start with those books that bridge Spiritism and Jungian psychology. Talk about a fascinating rabbit hole to dive into.
The psychological series is certainly a good place to start for anyone interested in that intersection of ideas. You might find unexpected connections and insights that resonate with your own experiences.
It's like Divaldo himself is prompting us with a final question from beyond the grave. What will you discover on your own journey of exploration? And that, my friends, is what makes a deep dive truly rewarding.